Welcome back to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. Thanks for all the likes and comments on the last video. And now, let's start with the first story. It's called Tell Me Every Time. Years ago, I worked in a call center doing technical support, usually for dial-up internet providers. I'll never forget one lady who called in. I don't remember what her issue was, but I started walking through troubleshooting. Okay, please double click on my computer with my left mouse button or my right button with the left button. Okay, now if you could double click on control panel please with the left button or right button. Oh yes, with the left button. When someone says double click, they are always referring to the left button. I don't care. I want you to tell me every time what button to use. So I did. For the rest of the conversation, every single time I asked her to double click on something, I would pause and say with the left mouse button, as if that was something unusual. She complied, but I could tell by her tone that she was getting frustrated with it. She never said that I could omit the added instruction though, so I just kept going. Eventually, the problem was solved and we disconnected. Nothing came of it, but I hope the next support desk she spoke to didn't need to explain it to her again. The next story is called Company Car. I work as a painter and had just finished my apprenticeship and got my journeyman letter. An apprentice never has a company car. That usually takes some time after you have done your validation and become a journeyman. However, my boss told me they got a car and he wanted it to be a pool car, but that I was gonna use it whenever no one else needed it. I asked him, will you drive me to work tomorrow so I can take it home then? No, it's a pool car. It's to be parked on company ground during nights. Cue malicious compliance. I usually had a 40 to 60 minute drive to our job. That meant I had to be at the company between 5 or 6. Depending on the area to drive to. We work 7 to 4, but I'm not gonna do that. After a week of me picking the car up at 7 from company grounds and leaving it at 4:30, my boss calls me into a meeting. He wants to write me up for not showing up to work in time. I have to work 8 hours a day. You are right, I'll start to leave the car at 4 instead of 4:30. What? No, you're supposed to be at the place at 7 and leave by 4. Well, I drive a pool car. According to the union rules, a pool car is to leave company grounds at 7 and be parked by 4. That's the rules. I have to follow them. This quickly shut him down and got me the car. The third story is called Concert Tickets. It was going to be my first concert. I was 16. Bon Jovi and Skid Row. There were so many people wanting to go that you had to get a line pass to even get in the line for tickets. I was being allowed to go with my 2 best friends, which was a big deal as I wasn't allowed to do anything, ever. This was going to be huge. At the last minute, literally on the way to the line, I'm told your sister, her husband and your little sister are going with. You can't be serious and you can take it or leave it. Well, alright then. Me and my 2 besties were dropped off to join the line and I was given money for 4 tickets to cover all of my family's tickets. At some point during this long raid, it occurs to us that we'll all have to sit in our assigned seats and neither I nor my friends want to hang out with my old sister, her old husband, 25 seemed ancient, and little sister, who honestly should not have been going in the first place. I get to the counter and ask for 3 tickets please. Complete the transaction and then 3 more tickets please. As far away from the first 3 as you can get them. The cashier totally knew what was up and gave me 3 more on the complete other side of the arena. We never mentioned it and pretended to realize on the way to the show. They knew it was no coincidence. But there was nothing to be done at that point. We walked out like crazy people and I even got a t-shirt. The next story is called Buy It Back. My wife and I bought her car 2.5 years ago and it's had weird mechanical problems ever since. It was a few years old but since it was a brand car and we bought it from the brand dealership, they included a terrible dealer warranty that basically said if we brought it to them for repairs, they'd be more liberal in what was considered their fault for records and whatnot. In practice, it meant that we paid for a series of useless little fixes out of pocket, because they kept tweaking something small and swearing the car was fine, to avoid admitting that fixing the problem correctly on their dime would probably involve taking the whole engine apart. A few days ago, we got a letter in the mail saying they are desperate to buy back our car. They are so in demand, they'll offer 5k over Blue Book value. At that point, the car had been sitting in their shop for 3 weeks straight, and they had stopped returning our calls. So my wife and I decided it was malicious compliance time. You want to overpay for a lemon? You're welcome to it. Of course, when we got there, they backpedaled so fast you could practically smell the smoke. Corporate sends those letters, not them. That's only for a car in perfect condition. Ours clearly has serious engine trouble, etc. My wife turned it back on them. Surely the car was in good shape, right? After all, the last 3 times they'd given it back to us, they claimed everything was fixed. As much as I'd like to say we stuck it to them and everyone clapped, we actually came out with a pretty reasonable deal, especially considering our theoretically 6k car probably needed 10k's of repair. They gave us the Blue Book value for it in good condition and waived the service fees for the last 3 weeks, which probably would have been another 1500, and we bought a new car from them instead of from someone else. Now they have their lemon back and we've got a vehicle with an actual warranty. It feels good. The last story is called By the Book. I live in a very tenant-friendly area. We have rent control, and landlords are not allowed to do things like demand security deposits, enter the property without proper written notice, or include no pet clauses in leases, which renew automatically every month after a fixed term ends. For the last 11 years, my husband and I have had a great relationship with our landlord, Joe. We've been very lenient in regards to repairs, and Joe was very forgiving when my husband and I both lost our jobs at the same time in 2016 and fell a few months behind on rent. We are now ahead on rent, but Joe is still very behind on maintenance and repairs. We have a whole laundry list of issues my landlord is aware of, but hasn't done anything about for years. But we didn't care, because he left us alone and has been overall very kind to us. A few years ago, our landlord allowed us to start storing stuff in an old rundown shed behind our rented portion of the yard. We never stored anything valuable out there, because it's falling apart, and squirrels have been using it to cage walnuts from the numerous walnut trees in our yard. We had an old barbecue, lawnmower, ladders, and outside toys for my kids in there. Until recently, a few months ago, Joe shows up, asking about the shed, wanting to know what we had stored out there. I told him just some old junk we'll probably throw out soon. He told us that the family next door has a mouse problem. We don't. And he wants us to clear out the shed to prevent issues. And because I wanted to look nice around here, I said okay, I'll talk to my husband and we'll get it cleared out whenever we get a chance. I have an infant at home, so I can't go out back and clean it out myself unless someone else is here to watch the baby. My husband had scheduled surgery, so he wasn't able to do any heavy lifting until after he recovered. Admittedly, cleaning out the old shed was not a high priority. Then, Joe sent me a passive-aggressive text. I just wanted to remind you that tomorrow is garbage day. We know, garbage pickup has always been on Monday, and we need to work together to keep the rental property nice for everyone to enjoy. I replied, asking him if he had plans to fix the shed, to remove his scrap pickup truck, or to remove his open compost piles and heaps of mixed concrete and scrap metal. He is out by the shed he wants us to clean. I also explained that my husband just had surgery and that we weren't planning on cleaning that shed that day. He did not like that. He showed up unannounced, walked inside, and proceeded to yell at us in front of our kids. He complained about his personal finances and the economy, inflation, property taxes, swore at us, told us we can't use the shed anymore, and threatened to evict us because clearly you don't like living here and I can get way more for this house than what you are paying now. We told him to leave and that we will not communicate with him anymore unless in writing. He said, fine, we'll do it all by the book from now on, and stormed out. The next day he put an eviction notice in our mailbox, complaining that we have excessive garbage and waste in outbuildings, that we refused to discuss this issue and corrective action with the landlord, and even adding that he felt it was unreasonable, given the fact that he didn't evict us for late rent back in 2016. The notice gives us 7 days to correct the issues, or else my landlord can file for an eviction hearing. The next day, while I cleaned out everything belonging to us, sans the walnuts and squirrel poop from the shed, my husband got busy contacting local bylaw and the rental housing enforcement agency, traffic cops for landlords. He was given information on how to file against the landlord for refusing to do repairs, illegal entry, loss of an amenity, the shed, and harassment. After a surprise inspection that happened last week, we were given a report that said Joe was given 90 days to fix the roof, plumbing, and reaping tile. He must demolish the shed and either erect a new shed or give us a rent reduction, because the shed was an assumed amenity. According to my neighbors with the mice issue, the provincial government is also involved now, because apparently he filled in a pond without a permit, and now the fire department doesn't have a nearby water source. In case of a fire, no hydrants out here. The city, by law enforcement, threatened to fine him for every day that he leaves his large pile of broken concrete and rebar out back. The cherry on top happened yesterday. He sent me a text to tell me that he and the plumber were going to be there within the hour. Normally I'd be okay with short notice, despite the law saying he must provide 24-hour written notice. Not this time. I told him we need 24-hour notice. He showed up, knocked on the door, and when I reminded him that I won't speak to him in person anymore, he called the police, saying that I was being hostile towards him and he doesn't feel safe coming here. He sat outside for 4 hours waiting for the police, who later called me instead of showing up. The officer who called said that Joe was told to stop harassing us and that he needs to provide 24-hour notice to enter the home. He wanted to make sure Joe left and gave proper notice, and asked me if I wanted an officer there tomorrow to keep the peace. If Joe doesn't do the repairs he's supposed to, we plan to take him to court and file for a rent reduction and for a lien to be put on the property, so he can't just sell it. We are just doing it by the book from now on and just want it to look nice. Thanks for watching the video to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. Also, if you want to support me further, check out the channel membership or Patreon. And now I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.